A silver Bentley purred softly as it rolled to a stop, its rear tire sagging flat. Behind the wheel sat Richard Coleman, a man whose face had graced business magazines and whose name carried weight in financial circles. At 72, Richard had everything the world claimed to be valuable: wealth, respect, power. But on this lonely stretch of road, he was helpless. He cursed under his breath, gripping the steering wheel. His driver had been dismissed for the day, and Richard had insisted he could manage alone. "What's a short drive, anyway?" he had told himself. But now the Bentley leaned awkwardly, the airless tire mocking his arrogance. Richard climbed out, adjusting his tailored navy blazer, the kind stitched with invisible threads of luxury. He bent down to inspect the tire, but his old knees groaned in protest. Frustration bubbled in his chest. Of all days, why today? He muttered. The air was heavy with silence, broken only by the occasional chirp of crickets hiding in the grass. Then, from across the street, came the sound of hurried footsteps. A boy no older than 15 appeared, his sneakers worn and his t-shirt faded but clean. He carried a backpack slung loosely over one shoulder, and his skin glistened with sweat from the summer heat. "Sir, do you need help?" the boy asked, his voice steady but respectful. Richard straightened, narrowing his eyes. "Help? Do you even know what you're doing, son?" His tone was skeptical, edged with impatience. The boy nodded. "Yes, sir. My uncle showed me how to change a tire. I can help you if you'd like." There was a pause. Richard's pride wrestled with his circumstances. He could call for roadside assistance, but it would take an hour, maybe more. This boy, this stranger, was offering help without hesitation. Richard sighed, motioning toward the Bentley. "Fine. Let's see what you can do." The boy set down his backpack and knelt beside the car. His hands moved with quiet confidence, loosening the bolts, positioning the jack, lifting the car inch by inch. Richard watched, arms folded, pretending not to be impressed. Yet inside, a flicker of something stirred. Curiosity. "What's your name?" Richard asked, his voice softer now. "Elijah, sir," the boy replied without looking up. "And where are you headed, Elijah?" "Home. My mom's waiting for me. She works double shifts, so I try not to be late." Richard studied him carefully. There was no trace of complaint in the boy's words, only responsibility. It reminded Richard of something distant, something buried beneath decades of boardrooms and bank statements. The boy he once was, struggling in the streets of Chicago before fortune found him. Within minutes, Elijah had the spare tire fitted. He wiped his brow, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. "There you go, sir. Good as new." Richard reached into his pocket, pulling out a crisp $100 bill. He extended it toward Elijah. "Here, for your trouble." But Elijah shook his head firmly. "No, sir, I didn't do it for money. I just wanted to help." Richard froze. People didn't refuse him. Ever. In his world, favors were transactions. Kindness was a currency. Yet here was a boy who offered help and expected nothing in return. For the first time in years, Richard felt disarmed. Elijah picked up his backpack and slung it over his shoulder. "Have a good evening, sir," he said, flashing a genuine smile before walking away. Richard stood there, the $100 bill dangling uselessly in his hand, his chest heavy with a strange, unfamiliar ache. Watching Elijah disappear down the road, he whispered to himself, "What kind of boy refuses money?" That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his sprawling mansion, staring at the ceiling as memories of Elijah's face replayed in his mind. The boy's honesty, his humility, it gnawed at him. Richard Coleman, the man who had built empires, suddenly felt small. He rose from bed, walked into his study, and poured himself a glass of bourbon. The amber liquid shimmered under the chandelier, but it brought no comfort. On the mahogany desk sat pictures of Richard shaking hands with presidents, cutting ribbons at charity events, posing beside luxury cars. None of them stirred his heart the way Elijah's simple smile had. The next morning, Richard made a decision. He had to find that boy. Richard's chauffeur drove him back to the neighborhood where his tire had gone flat. It was a poorer part of town, houses with peeling paint, yards littered with rusted bicycles, and children chasing each other barefoot. The contrast to Richard's manicured estate was striking. He scanned the streets until he saw him, Elijah, carrying the same worn backpack, walking briskly toward a small brick house. Richard's chest tightened as he watched the boy enter through the squeaky gate. "Stop the car," Richard ordered. He stepped out, adjusting his blazer, and walked toward the house. Elijah's mother, a weary-looking woman in her 40s, appeared on the porch. Her eyes widened at the sight of the Bentley parked nearby and the distinguished gentleman approaching. "Good morning," Richard said politely. "I'm looking for Elijah." The woman glanced nervously at her son, who had just set his backpack down inside the doorway. "Yes, that's my boy. Did something happen?" Elijah stepped forward, his face lighting up with recognition. "Mr. Coleman, did the tire hold up?" Richard chuckled softly. "It did, thanks to you." Then he turned to the mother. "Ma'am, your son is extraordinary. Yesterday he refused my money after helping me. I don't see that kind of integrity often." The woman's eyes softened, pride shining through her exhaustion. "That's Elijah. His father passed when he was little, so he's always felt responsible for helping me and his younger sister. I just pray he gets the opportunities he deserves." Richard felt something shift deep within him. For decades, his life had revolved around accumulating more wealth, more recognition, more power. But here was a family with so little, yet so much heart. He cleared his throat. "I'd like to get to know Elijah better, if that's all right with you." The mother hesitated, then nodded slowly. "If you have good intentions, sir, you're welcome." Richard smiled, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through him. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about profits or deals. He was thinking about a boy whose honesty had cracked open the walls around his heart. As he left that day, Richard knew this was just the beginning. Something had awakened inside him, a longing not for more wealth, but for meaning. And Elijah, the boy with the pure heart, was the spark that had lit the fire. This family had so little, yet they had given him something priceless. After some conversation, "Elijah, yesterday you helped me without expecting anything in return. You reminded me of something I had forgotten, that kindness is the real treasure in life." He leaned forward, his voice breaking slightly. "I want to help you. Not because I pity you, but because you gave me a gift that no amount of money could buy." Elijah shook his head quickly. "I didn't do it for a reward, sir." Harris smiled. "I know, and that's exactly why you deserve one." In the weeks that followed, became a regular visitor at the family's home. He paid for repairs to their house, ensured Elijah's sister had proper clothes, and quietly arranged for Elijah's mother to get a steady job at one of his companies. But most importantly, he took Elijah under his wing. He invited the boy to his office, teaching him about business, leadership, and life itself. One afternoon, as they stood overlooking the city skyline, the old man placed a hand on Elijah's shoulder. "You have something, Elijah. Something money can't buy. Integrity, compassion, and courage. With those, you can build a future brighter than anything I've seen in my career." Elijah swallowed hard, his eyes misty. "I just wanted to help, sir." "That's all, and you did. You helped me more than I can ever repay. You reminded me how to live again." Years later, Elijah grew into a man of wisdom and success. He not only built a thriving career, but also became a voice of hope in his community. At Harris's retirement celebration, Elijah stood before a room full of dignitaries and said, This man once called me his blessing, but the truth is, he was mine. He showed me that wealth is not measured by what you keep, but by what you give. Harris, sitting in the front row with tears in his eyes, knew that the boy he had once met on a lonely roadside was no longer just a helper. He was family. One small act of kindness had changed 2 lives forever. A young boy searching for meaning had found a mentor. An old man drowning in loneliness had found a son. And together they proved a timeless truth. Kindness is the richest legacy anyone can leave behind.